Right. Okay. So let's get this show on the road. So, um, my agenda, which is something that I always recommend for everybody to have one, I'll be covering the convincing clients part, which is the big elephant in the room. And I've got a very different take on that I'd love to share. I'm going to look at my processes, how I manage them, really kind of sharing quite a lot of technical weed stuff, including my costs, how to build your team or how I've built my team, the tools and systems I'm using, how I'm controlling costs. And then I'm going to go into the sexy stuff, which everybody always likes, which is actual projects, including some tracking progress and digging into my actual design process. So the big elephant in the room, I always have people asking me, how do you persuade clients to go to Passive House? And I'd like to flip this because actually I don't. What I do is I have established my own baseline for my own practice. And really, this is the key that I think everybody should really decide. What is it that you want to do as a professional, and to set your own baseline? So, I really encourage people to take ownership of your practice. When we go to visit a doctor, we don't ask a doctor whether he washes his hands in between patients. We just expect that. And as architects, really, we need to own our process and our practices, and really really manage that agency. You get to decide what kind of projects you do. And this is how I've established it. I just said to my clients, I only do Passive House. That's my baseline as a practice. And then what I've done is I've made that the choice that I give my clients is really whether to certify or not to certify. And that's plenty. That's really the decision that's theirs to actually make. But everything else is sort of baseline stuff that I only am willing to do Passive House projects as the core part of my practice. And then so that's just makes it super easy, and it's not even a decision that you give to clients. It's a decision that you make about what you are going to do with your own professional practice and your work life. And really where I'm going with my own practice is really exploring the low embodied carbon materials now, because Passive House is sort of in the DNA of all the projects that I do. And it takes a while to really get to a real level of comfort for that, but it's not that difficult. And what I do is I make it really visible. So these are projects I've done over the past decade with Alvin Gilliland. Any project that I put on my website, I also put the PHPP verification tab, full disclosure. Not all of them actually hit all the numbers, but most of them do. And really, again, transparency and visibility, making that part of what you do as an everyday practice is key. So building a team, I have really worked very closely with builders for the past decade. I worked exclusively with Alan Gilliland at One Sky Homes. I essentially subcontracted my design services to his firm. So we delivered our projects as a design build package. And now what I'm doing, that since Alan's retired, I'm actually building a stable of other contractors that I'm working directly with. So my team is now really magnifying. I get to work with a huge group of really smart people. And it's a resource that I think a lot of architects don't really utilize very well, because it's a huge group of people that all really are very passionate about what they do, and they have a huge skill set that I can actually utilize and to the benefit of my design and my practice. So how I integrate them into the process is my own contracts are directly with clients, and they include all the regular processes that architects typically deliver, from schematic design, design development, construction documents, and construction administration services. And then what I have my clients do is I have them engage contractors right at the design development phase, and I have them negotiate a pre-construction services contract with the various contractors that I basically set them up with, and they're all pre-selected because they've been, gone through the training. So, there's definitely a pre-qualification process that happens. But when, this alliance, this collaboration happens very actively in the most sort of the juicy part of the construction design and development process, and it's a real synergistic collaboration that I highly recommend. And where I get to utilize these contractors, I really work closely with them to vet products, making sure that the local supply chain is robust enough to be able to spec a specific product. So I'll find stuff and I'll say, hey, fine, make sure that you can source this locally, and then give me the cost of it, means and methods. All my details get vetted through the contractor to make sure that it's sequenced correctly, and that they are comfortable with it. They have subcontractors and contractors who can actually deliver that specific assembly or that detail. I get them to do feasibility, and always budgeting. The sooner you get the budgeting and the pricing for particular materials up front, the better. And it just makes for a much smoother transition from the construction documents into the implementation process. So for tools, I don't think I'm using anything revolutionary here, but it is worth sort of reviewing my toolbox. I use Basecamp for all the communication for all my projects. Each of my project gets essentially a digital filing cabinet for all the conversations and the documents and that happen, schedules as well. I use Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides. I love those because you can share them with people and you can have multiple people contributing. For invoicing and reports, I use a service called Ronin app. It helps me also track hours. And the reports feature is something I really value, and it helps me keep a real tight rein on design costs. Obviously modeling, I use PHPP and Design PH. And then for monitoring, post-occupancy monitoring, historically I've used SiteSage, specifically with Alan. So that's really also helped, and it's a key tool in the toolbox. Costs. I only do design cost plus contracts. So all my contracts are hourly. I don't do fixed fee contracts because I think they put myself and my clients in opposition to each other rather than in collaboration with each other. But in order to make clients comfortable with an hourly cost contract, I give a very detailed cost estimate right at the contract phase. This is a document that's the total, totals for all of my processes, that I cover, and I even have a more nuanced breakdown of what that actually entails, so that they see exactly how it all gets added up. And then as we go through the process, I issue these reports. So this report here is a recent one for a project I'm working on. And I issue these periodically updated to reconcile against where we are in the construction process. And so that clients can see that the original estimate, what I'm actually billing them, is in line with the estimate that I gave them in the contract. So everybody has full transparency, and I can manage the process, I can manage the costs, I can manage my own fees. And in terms of construction costs, so that was soft costs. Oh, and by the way, I also include all these other estimates that clients will have to pay that are not by, not delivered by me, but the other fees that clients have to pay in order to build a building, soft costs. And so that clients have a very realistic idea of what they really will need to pay to build and design a building. So that's all soft costs. I've got a ping there. Now I've got hard costs. Hard costs, Alan tracked all of the hard costs for our projects since 2014, or 5 of these anyway. And we looked at a breakdown of what they actually cost per square foot. If you actually then, a recent report came out from Home Builders Digest, looking at similar custom construction projects in the Bay Area, because these numbers look crazy until you compare them to what else is being built, custom homes in the Bay Area. And lo and behold, we turn out to be value conscious, which is awesome to know. We should have been charging much more because we're delivering passive house levels and value conscious prices. In fact, kind of lower than value conscious prices. So never let anybody tell you that passive house costs more. Tracking performance, you know that we've had a lot of our projects monitored. I'm not going to go into this, but we know that Passive House delivers exactly what it says on the tin. These were the estimated and these were the actual for heating and cooling, and our numbers are incredibly, eerily spot on. And to close out, I'm going to go through a couple of projects and the design process that I employ and that I do through my projects. This is a house. Actually, none of these are my house, but I wanted to show you where we start from, which is my clients come to me with these aspirational ideas. These are images that actually a number of my clients have selected these particular houses. And this is a project I'm working on with Carmel Builders in Pebble Beach down in Carmel, Monterey. And this is what my clients started with. This is where they said, okay, this is the kind of house I'm looking for. I went back to them and I said, okay, Monterey has this fabulous tradition of a Monterey modern. And this is what I'm going to bring to the table and sort of use as a way to help inspire and interpret a design for your property. I dug into the actual property itself. So this is a picture from the site. And the site has these fabulous pine trees, these tall pine trees with a very vertical element. And then these oak trees that have this very horizontal aspect because the soil is really thin in this sort of coastal site. And I went to my sketchbook and came up with these sort of ideas of what I wanted to really propose for my client. And these you can sort of see I'm playing with the verticality of the pines. Oops. And I'm playing with the sort of horizontality of those oaks. And I'm riffing off of that Monterey modern tradition. And this was an early proposal, an idea for how this house would look. Then we went through a whole lot of iterations. The client wanted that sort of strong horizontality of those modern, flat roofed houses. So I was looking at how do we change that roof to do that. These were some siding explorations, looking at different compositions and different materials. And this is what the actual design is going to hopefully look like. We are currently stuck in an interminable permitting black hole. I've been 1.5 years waiting for the approval. I'm sure a lot of you architects are in that position right now. But it's, it's this vertical siding, lots of vertical tall windows and horizontal windows with cedar cladding, which I'm really excited about. And I do hope it's going to get built. These are a couple images from the back side of the house. So front side is pretty vertical and flat facade. It's the north. And on the back side, south, the roof sort of wraps down and comes down quite an extent of the house with much bigger windows. Another project I'm really excited about, this is in Clovis, California, which is sort of Fresno Central State, super hot summer and a quite cool winter. It's foothills. I'm working with Andrew Mitchler on this at Hyperlocal. We've been collaborating on this project, and we've essentially designed a big umbrella over a modern, flat roofed house. We're sort of playing off of the agri vernacular, those metal, steel agricultural buildings that are quite common in this region, and I'm sort of integrating it into residential to provide this nice shade. That's just sort of another perspective on that house. With a nice roof deck, you can see that the clients will be able to utilize on that property. A project I'm working on here, it's a retrofit. This is in Redwood City, close to the home, an existing home that I'm renovating with some lovely clients who have a penchant for Japanese sports cars. So I'm really kind of giving them a big garage in the back here, keeping the existing front cottage, which is a 1950s a shack basically, and we're adding this the backside double house that connects to the pool and the existing pool in the back side of this very steeply sloping property. Again, I'm using the roof. I'm finding basically all I'm building is big umbrellas, and because in California, shade, and more shade is what we need for passive house. And then last project I'm sharing with you here, another lovely set of clients with a spectacular property up, also foothills, but sort of closer to Sacramento. This is in Amador County, and behind them is the spectacular Butte. And I'm designing this house. Is still sort of schematic. We're kind of working through design development, but I've designed a huge big wraparound porch, a loggia kind of all around this house, to shade the house from the harshness of our California sun and our heat. And you can see on this sort of more bird's eye view, loggia all around the south and the southeast corner. North side is pretty well shaded, and I've got a courtyard entrance here. This is an existing sort of workshop building that they've also put on the site. So really that's the sum of what I'm going to be what I've been sharing with you today. And I close with this quote, which is one of my favorites. I put it on one of my previous business cards because it's just a really good reminder about what we need to do and what we choose to do, and how we can really own what we do in a much more real way, and really utilize our own agency to deliver projects that we can all be really proud of, and that actually we can hopefully survive the next 30 years in. So that's really it. I hope I haven't gone over my